I'm Leanne Tran, psychologist who's worked with families whose kids don't fit the mould for almost 20 years. I've worked with children for decades, but I know parents are the real change makers when it comes to their kids. Having 3 kids of my own means I know it's not easy. Parent Like a Psychologist is all about simplifying how you support your kids with psychology information filtered through years of experience to take you from overwhelmed to confident. Come on in. Hello, thank you so much for joining me again. I'm very excited that you are and to have you here. I've been thinking a little lately about how to plan for the school year, planning for the new school year. I think because a couple of episodes ago I talked about managing summer transitions, and I talked about how we kind of, in a big helicopter view kind of way, have that transition into the school holidays at the end of the year when everyone's tired, get through the holidays and then have that transition into the new school year next year. Well, the next year, so for 2024. And it made me think about how to prepare for the school year and reflecting on what I usually do and the conversations I have with parents about transitioning as well. Preparing for that 2024 school year. So part of it's getting the book lists all done, the shopping, and it's, I don't know, everywhere else in Australia might be different. In Brisbane, it's just so hot, and every time I seem to be going to do the book list shopping, everyone's dripping with sweat and unhappy to be doing it. So I always try and be organised to do that early. But there's the book list stuff, and then there's the uniforms, and there's making sure everyone's got school shoes that fit and sneakers that fit. And then, good gosh, there's not much money or time left over after all of that stuff. So these things I'm going to talk about don't involve much extra, a little bit of extra time maybe, no extra money. And it's just 3 quick ideas I wanted to talk about because I think, I mentioned I'm trying to keep it short and sweet over the summer because we've all got less time and less brain capacity. But with the new year does come that chance to reflect on the year before and then be intentional about what we want for 2024. And so with that spirit, I guess, I wanted to talk about a couple of things, 3 main things you can think about for 2024. The first thing is to think about, if your child's got an individual education plan, to think now about the review of that plan, which will come early in the first term, or for some schools, term 2. I think why I'm talking about it now, though, is that once we're in the swing of the school year, it can be tricky to find the space and time to reflect on what your child needs. And so this now, in this hopefully calm time when everybody's more relaxed because there's been a holiday and some time out of the routine of work and school, and everyone's settled at home, that actually is a really great opportunity to have this conversation about what you think your child needs for 2024. When we're in the thick of the school year, and particularly at the end of term 4, so last year, you just don't have the capacity to think about this stuff objectively a lot of the time. And even if you did, you might forget. It's just this really rushed, crazy time of year. And once term 1 starts, you're probably in the routine of things as well. So now it's always great when you have those times away to reflect. So I often say, my husband and I talk about how when we're on holiday is when we can we always reflect and think, we don't want our life to be like that anymore. We don't want to do that anymore. We want to do this instead. And it's the space that we have by being away from the house and away from the routine that lets us have that insight. So that's why I'd encourage you to think about it now. You don't have to write anything down. I mean, you could if you want to. You may have ADHD like one of your children, but it starts the thinking process anyway. And you might just jot it down like brainstorming stuff. So then you've got some notes to go into the meeting with. I think it's important to think about just how well you understand your child's individual education plan. So thinking about what is it trying to address? What is it trying to support so that your child finds it easier to be at school and to learn? And if you don't understand it, ask questions about it, because that's one of the important ways to make sure you and the school and the teachers are on the same page. So think about how well you think you understand what it's trying to do and what support it's trying to give your child. The next thing is to think about whether you need to clarify any of the accommodations that are in place. And when we talk about accommodations, it's really any changes to the school environment or curriculum that helps your children better access the curriculum. That's the term I use, and it basically means be able to learn, because sometimes kids aren't able to learn effectively without these accommodations. So it might be things like if your child has a learning disorder, it might be things like the use of a reading pen or some iPad type, talk to text technology. It could be if your child's got a range of challenges like anxiety, processing speed challenges, ADHD, it might be extra time for tasks and assessments. It might be breaks during the day. It might be simplified instructions. It might be that the curriculum itself is changed. So the expectation of how much your children learn and how much is cut out of their program to allow them to spend extra time on other more important parts. There are lots of options for accommodations that could be suitable for your kids. So think about and look at the ones that are in your child's plan and see if you need to clarify any of those or ask if there are additional supports. And I would do that based on whether you have, how you think your child went in response to those supports from last year. So if they handled things well, you're probably on top of it. When I say you, I mean the whole team. Or in general, it's not for you as a parent to bear this burden of responsibility. But if you feel like your child is still really struggling with certain areas of school, then that's an area maybe to ask whether there are some other accommodations or extra support that could be provided. I think there's a time too when in these meetings your teaching staff will ask you about the goals that you might have for this year. I think every family is different when it comes to goals, and I think my personal approach to goal setting is that I think if my kids are at school and happy to be there and handling the classroom expectations, then I'm happy. But I know for a lot of families, they have additional goals or different goals. Some families are real goal setters and goal getters, and so they'll set those goals and put them in place each year. And some people aren't. That's totally okay as well. But in this time of space and relaxation in January, you can think about whether you do have goals for your child for next year and what kind of things they might need in their education plan to support them towards those goals. So that's the first one done, thinking about reviewing the IEP, or whatever they call it. I know they're different names now across different schools. The second thing is to think about the transition back from holidays to school. It feels like it's not time yet to be thinking about the transition back to school, but it is. I've specifically released this episode earlier rather than later in the holidays because, unfortunately, it's time. The holidays seem so long at the beginning, and then it just feels really quick. It seems like it comes really quickly to the point where there's not many weeks left. You've still got time, don't worry, don't freak out too much. But I think why it's important to think about it now is that it lets you start that gradual change. And so if you have, like many families, including mine, let the bedtimes go, let the screen time go a little bit, eating habits, maybe things like that. I know over that like December, January week, it's normally no one knows what meal it is or what they're having. But then if you want to get things back into the regular school time routine that works well for your family, then it needs to be slow and steady. Gradual changes are the easiest to implement. So if your kids are ending up going to bed 2 hours later than they usually do, try and wind it back by half an hour for a couple of days, and then do half an hour again and again until you're there. Getting into some patterns of waking up and getting ready in the morning can be helpful, even if it's just to go for a walk. Then your kids are getting back into that habit of waking up, having breakfast and getting dressed. And even then, maybe some scheduled meal times that might mimic more that school routine as well can be really helpful. And play it by ear, but all families are different. But it's time now to think about what you do want to implement, because preparation is so much better than scrambling when it's not going well. And the other part is to maybe some kids want to reconnect with some friends now. If you've been away on holiday or just had some really nice weeks to yourself, some kids might like building that connection again, which helps then being at school to feel connected to people other than the family. So, and that's why it's good to start now thinking about it as well, because leaving it till the last minute means it's really hard to make those things happen. So thinking about what you would like the home routine to be like in the school term, and trying to plot your path towards getting there. And the third thing I wanted to cover was just to think about how you can set things up at home now. And so that might be spaces you need to work well in the home so that then term one runs smoothly. The common one I need to reinvigorate is the homework space, or I know some schools don't have it. I've got high school kids, they do home learning space. And so we try and neaten it up and put together all of the, brought home stationery from last year so that there are all the pens and pencils and sharpeners there. Try and make sure it's neat and tidy, and do a bit of a clean out of all the old junk. So much junk. Anyway, it's making me think I should do that job now and not leave it until the date this is released. But getting all of that kind of sorted early is helpful as well. So it might be, and these are some hot tips if your child's got ADHD particularly. Autism as well comes with executive functioning challenges, and anxiety as well. So these are some key strategies on how to organize the space. Trying to minimize distractions. So if you can keep a clear, neat space is really great. If it can be the same space each time, so there's that consistency and routine of that's where the work is done. Being organised for what your child needs to execute the task is good. So when we talk about executive functioning, that means doing the thing. So kids know when they have executive functioning challenges, whether that's autism, ADHD, or anxiety, or just on their own, it means they know how to do it all. It's just that they can't do the thing. And so that means the more you set it up to help, the better. So having everything they need right there with them is good. They don't have to go off and find pens or pencils, rulers, sharpeners, rubbers, because as soon as you do that, you open up to the possibility of distraction and wandering off and forgetting. So have everything you need for the task there. Have some visual supports there of maybe like what to do, how, the timer maybe is there for kids who need to do 15 minutes of homework. And having it be in a quiet, calm space is really important. You can then move into doing things like colour coding the books, the pencils, different things for different kids, so that they've really got a clear sense of how the space operates. Those are all really key, helpful things. You can extend that as well, like this organising the space and supplies can be about homework. It can also be in the pantry, like I like to do, so that my kids know where they go to get certain things. So there's afternoon tea stuff. It means every afternoon they're not asking what can we have, because it's a space there. They know anything on that shelf they can have. So there's fruit there and all of, some other snacks can be in the fridge. So we've got space for the lunch boxes. We've got space for where the stuff for dinner is to be made and all of that kind of thing. Because I think if you do it now while you've got the time and the space, it's so much more organised. And I often say that routine is communication, because just by keeping things in routine, it's communicating to kids what is going to happen. I think organisation is the same. It's a form of communication. And so your kids are more on your page about what they're meant to be doing and how things are meant to happen. So that's the key to setting things up now at home. And the other part of that, we've talked about the space and the supplies. The other side of preparing is emotionally preparing or setting things up at home for your kids now emotionally. Some kids love school. They're excited about it and they want to go back. And so you can encourage that and build that connection by, for example, if they know, talking about who their teacher will be, who's in their class. Some kids don't like school and they don't want to be there. And so acknowledging for them that that's a tough time as well is important. You're probably, if you're noticing some changes in your children, if they're starting to look less energetic, more kind of down, you can say things to them to help them understand and process those feelings. So it might be things like, you look down, how are you feeling? Or you look sad, is that right? Checking in and saying, I know school, you're looking down. I know school's coming up. Do you think it's about that? Or just if your child has the capacity, asking them how they feel about school. And planning in things then to mitigate some of that stress is important. So if you plan for something nice each week to do with your kids because they've made it through another week of school, something to look forward to in the school holidays, those things are like the lights at the end of the tunnel that can help our kids see it through. So taking time to set that up as well as the physical stuff, moving through that transition back to school towards the routine you'd like to have, and then thinking about what you would like your child's support to look like in school through that individual education plan. So it's nice to have the chance to think about these things. I know it's early, but I really do love prevention better than firefighting when things kind of turn pear-shaped. So hopefully this has brought some things top of mind for you, and that it will be helpful and prepare you for a lovely, smooth transition into school for 2024. Thanks for listening to this episode of Parent Like a Psychologist. If you found it helpful, please share on Instagram so other parents can benefit too, and tag me at Leanne Tran Psychology so that I can say a big thank you. Head over to leannetran.com.au to join the village for bite-sized psychology tips straight to your inbox. I really hope this podcast has brought a new perspective and you a step closer towards a calm parent and a thriving child. Have a delightful day.